Welcome to this quick walkthrough of a Valuegraphics profile dashboard. Remember, the information here comes from hundreds of millions of data points in the Valuegraphics Database. It's more accurate than you need for a PhD and identifies exactly what buttons you need to push to move the needle in the right direction. Because for any problem and every opportunity, if you know what people value, you know exactly how to engage them and influence the outcomes that you'd like to see. Let's get started. This is the first page of your dashboard. You'll notice the description of the audience we studied in the bottom left corner. There's an introductory video for when you're sharing this with others, and some other buttons you can push to download the report as a PDF, a button to take you to our website for more information, and another button that takes you to a crash course in values thinking. If you're wondering, values thinking is a simple process for making decisions just like design thinking, except we keep shared values at the center of the decision-making process. So in a very real way, values thinking is the entire point of this dashboard because we want you to learn how to use Valuegraphics data to solve any problem and achieve every goal. This page includes the top values for the audience we've profiled. To make it easy to see how their values are different and where they are the same, we always compare them against another audience. Now remember, there's 56 values that could have turned up here, but didn't. So all of the values you see on this page are incredibly powerful tools to help you engage and influence this audience. Now we always choose 3 values that we call the power values. How we choose the power values is somewhat arbitrary. We choose the values that will be the most useful for the issues you're trying to solve today, but tomorrow you will undoubtedly have other issues to address, and you always can come back to this chart and choose other values that are going to help you at that moment in time. Here we've taken the power values and made them easier to see, and it's a good place for me to explain the next 3 pages. On each page, we zero in on one power value, and we do 2 things. First, we give you the exact definition of what this value means for this audience, because each of the 56 values has hundreds of potential meanings. So for example, the value of belonging has 912 specific meanings and corresponding codes in the Valuegraphics database, and altogether, the 56 values have more than 8,000 codes for exactly what each one means. And when a value over-indexes for a group of people, like the power values do here, we can identify exactly what that value means to those people. What conditions need to be present for them to feel like their values are aligned. The second thing we do for each of the power values is give you some thought starters. Now, these are just ideas we generate for bringing the value to life, but of course, we're never going to know your situation as well as you do, so you're more than welcome to ignore these ideas. The point of them is just to show you how values data can be used to develop strategies and tactics that are values driven. You're going to do a much better job of that than we have. So here's the page for the first power value. See the definition under the value, and the thought starters are down the right-hand side. We then do the same thing for power value number 2 and for power value number 3. After that, we give you this page with all the definitions for all the top values in case you want to use them, because remember, these are all powerful tools to engage this audience and influence the outcomes that you want to see. But you can kind of think of it like a toolbox. Sometimes you're just hanging a picture on the wall and all you need is a hammer and a nail, and another time you might be, I don't know, building a shelf and you're going to need a skill saw and a drill. You can keep coming back to this toolbox for every problem you're trying to solve and every goal you're trying to achieve, and grab the tools that are going to serve you best. Next up is perhaps my favorite page in the dashboard, where we show you the values concentrations. Now, to come up with these, we've looked at all the definitions for the top values for this audience and all the other things we know about them from the hundreds of millions of data points in the Valuegraphics database, which includes things like their wants and needs and expectations and likes and preferences and emotions and all this other wonderful stuff. And then we put all of that in a pot on the stove and we boil it down to its most concentrated form, and we get this, the values concentrations. Now, if you don't want to go any deeper than this, you can simply use these few statements to guide every decision you make about everything, and you'll benefit from all the concentrated knowledge in this custom Valuegraphics study. This page shows you the demographics for the audience we've profiled for you, and then we get into the psychographic information we have for this audience. But remember, psychographics and demographics are mercurial at best. People will wake up tomorrow, and because of a birthday, they're not going to be 18 to 24 year anymore. They're not going to be 18 to 24 years old anymore. They're now going to be in the 24 to 36 year old category, or they will have gotten married and before they were single. And similarly, psychographics about how they feel or think or have behaved in the past, those are also going to change. If we ask these same people these questions next week instead of this week, we'd get different answers based on what's happened to them in that space of time. I mean, you can love Nike Nike running shoes one day and then have a really bad experience with the store or the shoe or with running in general, and suddenly you don't love Nike running shoes anymore. And that's one of the most beautiful things about Valuegraphics data. Values are forever. We get them when we're young, and they're with us for the rest of our lives. So the values portion of this dashboard will be accurate for your work for as long as you're working. Let's have a look at some of the psychographic information we collect. On this page, we show you how much more these people will pay for a product that's aligned with their values, how much more they will trust you, and how much more they will be engaged. We call these three metrics ROV, for return on values. We show you which media channels will be most effective for pitching this audience with your values-driven strategies and campaigns. We give you their wants, needs, and expectations, all of which are fantastic contextualizing data for the values-driven initiatives that you will create. We show you the one thing that will make them say yes, or what we call the deal maker. And there's also the one thing that will make them say no. That's the deal breaker. And finally, we show you the answer to what we call the love-hate-wish question. In other words, what do they love about your issue? What do they hate? And what do they wish they could change? Now, if you've opted for a full segmentation study, the next part of the dashboard goes over all the same information we've already covered for each of the various segments within your audience, because your audience is going to break down into a number of different sub-audiences based on what they value. And those values are the secret recipe for how to engage them and influence the outcomes that you want to see. Each of those segments can be used to create personas or profiles, or they can be mapped back against your existing personas or profiles. And that's it. That's the data we collect, analyze, and deliver for every Valuegraphics profile, because regardless of the issue, we're all values driven. Values are the answer. We just have to put them to work.